Fun little countdown. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever it is that you're tuning in from. My name is Heather Flattery, and I'm the Manager of Membership and Marketing at the Society for Public Health Education. And we are so excited to be presenting this today. So I am joined with my colleagues, Rebecca Rich, who is the student trustee of the Sophie Board of Trustees, and also Dr. Escoffery, who is our current Sophie Board of Trustee President for the 2020-2021 term. Today, we're going to be discussing a little bit about what next. For many of you who are students or transitioning professionals or are joining us as someone who maybe is continuing their education but looking to graduate in the next year or so, COVID has presented a lot of interesting and intangible moments where we're not sure how to proceed or what exactly is a best practice. So we want to circle back on some of those areas where we can hone our professional skills. So if you're joining us, we see that we've got a couple of people watching. Thank you for joining. Tell us where you're coming from. Let us know in the comments, what city, what's your name, who are you? We're happy to have you with us. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So as I mentioned, my name is Heather. I'm the Manager of Membership and Marketing at the Society for Public Health Education. And you can reach out to me. You can see here that we have 4 different social media platforms, but you can also reach out to me through membership at Sophe, SOPHE.org, if you have any membership questions. I'm quickly just going to touch base on a couple of aspects which I think are really relevant for this conversation. And I know that they'll probably be followed up with my fellow presenters, but the networking opportunities that something like a membership association provides really allows you to identify other persons who have either been in your shoes or are where you are. And so that's really unique if you want to find someone at the local level who maybe is involved with one of our 22 chapter affiliates, or if you want to find someone who is where you'd like to go, someone who's in a director role or a senior role in a nonprofit or in academia. These are all really great attributes to be able to have at the touch of your fingertips with a network like Sophie. Also, our continued programs and our resources. You can check out our Sophie website, sophe.org, for more information to learn what we've been putting out since the COVID pandemic really broke news earlier this year, and how we've been trying to reinforce and support our academic community, as well as our practitioners and our students. So if you want to learn any more about some of those resources available to you, I highly recommend you visit our website, which I'll put up as a banner in just a moment. Also, and we'll be reiterating this throughout the presentation, but we do have some available scholarships and awards, and those are for our virtual advocacy summit, which will be going on this October, and then next year's Sophie annual conference, which will be happening in St. Louis. And we're still defining all the roles and responsibilities of that, but both of them have eligible scholarships, where both practitioners and students can apply to have a reward that will help with not only registration, but sometimes additional costs that may be incurred as part of that process if you do need to travel, if travel opens back up over the next year or so. So we're looking at some of those different avenues. Please take advantage of these opportunities. And then lastly, Sophie does operate a career hub. So we have an opportunity online where you can learn more about where to find jobs that are available for you, how to check in with some of these different opportunities. And you can also put a resume on there and have it reviewed for free digitally. So you'll see the link there in the bottom. I know it's a little hard to read, but you can go ahead and screenshot this page. You can take that for your advantage. And so we want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that opportunity as well. And then lastly, before I turn it over to my next speaker, I want to leave you with this quote. Instead of letting your hardships and failures discourage or exhaust you, let them inspire you. I know that this has been a really tough time for a lot of us. I know that it's been unclear, hard to navigate. And so I think that this is an aspect where we can build our resilience and we can look at new opportunities that will help us continue to be strong and find new outcomes on the other side. A couple of takeaways that we're going to be discussing today, again, honing your skills, finding ways to connect, and considering new opportunities. So while I have this slide up of a couple of different people who are part of the Sophie family, I just want to showcase that we've got some really cool people that have joined us. Hi, Ankita from India. Thank you so much. Dr. Poe, one of our fellow board members, thank you for joining us. Houston is represented. Hi, Diana from New York. Thank you so much. Shadia, one of the fellow Sophie team. Awesome. And Stacy from PA. Thank you so much. We've got a really wide range of people joining us today, so that's really exciting. And we're going to continue on with the rest of our presentation. Thank you again for joining us. And if you have questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat box. Dr. Escoffery?
Thank you so much, Heather, for having me today. And thank you, Becca, for also being part of this panel. I think we are excited to kind of share some tips and wisdoms with you. I just want to say I'm thrilled to be able to reach out to you at this time. I know it's as Heather said, very different and unprecedented, but we still wanted to have ways to outreach to you all and present some information that hopefully will be in your toolkit as you go on with your journey. And so this is my information, my email, and also my Twitter handle. If you want to follow me, I'm at the Rollins School of Public Health in the Department of Behavioral Sciences and Health Education. So I'm going to be talking about best practices to get the interview. Next slide. So first of all, I want to say congrats to all of you who may have graduated. It's been a long journey, but you did it. I'm sure your family and friends are very supportive of you, and thank you for being passionate about health promotion or public health or community health. You are going to be the next leaders out in the field. So some of the things that I think we should all keep in mind as we go on to the next fork in the road, I call it, is to have your support system. Now more than ever, we are trying to use the term physical distancing instead of social distancing. We all need our support, whether it's getting through a program, getting through biostats and all of that, or helping us talk through with faculty or advisors the next step in our lives. The next thing that I would challenge you to think about is opportunities. Sometimes when you are at that fork in the road, you want to think about what's being offered, what's on the menu that different people are giving you, and think deeply about them. And sometimes it just makes you want to just take the leap, because if you take the leap, then you are actually doing things that might build your resume. So don't always be on the sidelines, step into those opportunities. I know that's been helpful for me. Passion, we all know that that's what we do in public health. Have an attitude of gratitude. I think as you go out, I'm always thankful for my mentors and my MPH and my doctoral programs, and still my lifelong members today. And so you want to make sure that you thank them personally and in different ways. And I think that is helpful. And it also, as in public health, makes us happier. And the last thing I just want to tell you is practice what we preach. We need to be out there getting exercise and eating healthy and being the role models. We can't always, be out there telling other people to do things and not think about ourselves. So that was kind of my last message to you. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about some areas that I think will help you get the interview, building up that resume, thinking about your social media presence, and thinking about networking and how Sophie can play a role in that. So the first thing that many people may have told you in terms of resume advice is, take a hard look at some of the things that you want to highlight. Make sure that you're using, strong action words. I have done, evaluation. I've conducted process evaluation. I've done needs assessment of communities around issues around food access. Using those action words are really helpful for employers or even practicum advisor or potential advisors to kind of see and know that you have the skills that are akin to all of our 7 areas of responsibilities or 8 areas of responsibilities in the new competency guidelines. Whether it's planning, evaluation, being a research person, communicating, advocacy, use those words. Sometimes those job kind of systems also scan for words. And so as you look in terms of potential job postings, to make sure that you're also using the same words from the job post in your cover letter and also in your resume, might also get people to take a peek at you and kind of see what you have to offer, because they like those skills-oriented words. The other thing I often tell my students is to not only highlight your paid, in air quotes, opportunities. You might have classroom experience. I know a lot of us have service learning classes. And so if you are doing evaluation, even with a small community-based organization, you can write about that, and, other skills or other projects that you have. Also with your practicum. And so just think broadly, because sometimes students are like, I haven't been out in the workforce before. How do I highlight some of these things? And I just say, you have opportunities just within your program to be able to highlight, whether they're classes or practicums and things like that. The next thing I want to talk about is build your presence. Now more than ever, part of who we are is being out there. And so if you haven't thought about your social media presence, I'm going to be talking about that in the next few minutes. Create a profile in some of the more career-oriented sites, such as LinkedIn, or if you want to be known as, a potential person in health promotion, you can also do Twitter and use, hashtags around health promotion or interventions or evaluation. The same thing applies for your resume. Most people tell you in LinkedIn and other places like that, you can build a similar resume to what you have on your actual physical resume. And then be active. Try to find those associations that are similar to what you're interested in, whether it's the Georgia Evaluation Association or the National Evaluation Association, if you're really interested in maybe doing process or outcome evaluation. Join Sophe or other professional association that kind of highlight your professional identity. So the next thing I'm going to highlight at the bottom, you can kind of see, is an article that I wrote about capitalizing your presence on social media. And I'm going to give you the clip note version, so you don't actually have to read it, but if you're interested, you will see the actual citation. It's in one of our journal, Health Promotion Practice, and I wrote it with some of our young professionals and in the career development section. So in looking at your social media presence, you want to consider the reasons why you want to be out there, and select the most appropriate channel that you're comfortable with or will get familiar with. And then what you want to do is choose that channel. So once you find that channel, so I actually highly recommend LinkedIn because it's like a virtual resume. And once you choose that channel, go ahead and build your presence. Have a professional looking mugshot, if you want to call it that. And you only have to be dressed up from, the top up, so wear professional clothing and kind of highlight yourself. As I talked about, link or follow health organization thought leaders that you like on LinkedIn, help topical discussion. And then the great thing about some certain social media is you will see links or posting. You can turn on the job site within LinkedIn, for example, and you can actually get weekly jobs that are similar to the areas of your interest. And I have known a lot of people in recent years that have actually been contacted either directly through LinkedIn or through headhunters and have gotten jobs just because they have a presence out there and they're looking for skills or words that are in people's resumes on LinkedIn. The next thing I want to talk about is professional networking. And so Sophie is a great opportunity for this. I started in my local Georgia Sophie, or it was called Jiffy back then, but the Georgia Sophie chapter, and was able to present work and also just be engaged in committees there. And then obviously now you see me at the national level. So even if you aren't running for office, it's actually a great place to kind of meet other people who might be working in areas that you want to work with. So we have communities of practice. So you could talk to people who might share interests with you in community health or in school health, those types of things. You could also use the membership directory. There's a reason why, as a paid member, you have access to all of us and to each other. So I tell students sometimes, if you're interested in moving to Arizona, and you want to be closer to family there, but you don't know the health ed network there, maybe search for members in Arizona and play the student or young professional card. I am coming here, just finished my MPH or my master's, and I'm looking for jobs in this area. They might be able to tell you what organizations that they have worked with or what job boards might be out there. And so using our membership links are great. Have an elevator speech. Know when you are going out there in these professional meetings to be able to talk about yourself in a couple sentences. That's what the elevator speech is all about. And tell them what your training is, what skills that you want. More to come on that in just a few minutes. I also talked about stepping out. Sometimes great opportunities to build your service section of your resume and also get to know people if you're a newer folk to a profession is to volunteer for professional association committees. It could also be a one-time role. We have abstract reviewers. We have community of practice if you just want to network and join in, whether it's at the annual meeting or also in the discussion boards. We have really active community of practice discussion boards. And then as you're meeting people, feel free to step out, ask them questions, collect their business card, follow up with them. I have known a few students to tell me, after attending an annual meeting of a professional association, whether it's Sophie or APHA, or even my Georgia Sophie, that they met with somebody and they had a practicum, within a few weeks because they followed up with them and said, hey, I talked to you about this and I know that you have practicum opportunities. I just applied. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, they actually had something to come out of it. So make sure to follow up. It's one thing to meet people, but it's another thing to kind of close the loop and also see what's out there for you. So this is the skills building part of our little presentation. So one of the things I talked about is using your professional network. And so being able to look at members that you might know in Sophie, or if you are coming to a local, regional, or national meetings, getting to know the members and asking them a little bit about their career path. Not everybody singularly knew that they wanted to do health promotion when they started in college, much less graduated from college and was in their MPH program. So look at the membership directory, as we said, or at a national meetings, sit down and have coffee with somebody and talk to them about their career journey. If you look at the emerging leaders training that we have for free in Sophie's Core, you will actually see an interview guide that was developed by some of us to ask people about who they are, what got them interested in this position, and just interview people, because you never know what path that they took to get where they are today, whether they're a professor or whether they're leading community incident response now with COVID-19, or whether they're doing school health. The next thing is the elevator speech. So you see Snoopy right down there telling them, I'm a young graduate. My name is Snoopy. I'm currently getting my MPH in health promotion at Emory University, and I have interest in school health program evaluation. When I finish, I would like to be a program evaluator for school health programs to make students healthier and also to see what works in the school setting and in other settings. So I have a question for some of you. Does anybody want to share part of their elevator speech at this time? What would you say in some of these areas? You can actually type it in the live comments. And if you don't have an opportunity to do this, we're going to continue. We can come back to that at the very end. But here's a quote for you to think about as you're thinking about your elevator speech. In the middle of difficulties lies opportunities. So make sure that you step out and think about different directions in your path and ways pros and cons. But don't be still. Make sure you step out and take the opportunity or take that fork in the road. It's my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Rebecca Rich or Becky Rich, who's going to be sharing her experience in getting the interview.
Thanks, Com. So I'm Rebecca Rich. I am this year's student trustee on the Sophie Board of Trustees. And I just in May graduated with my PhD in health education and promotion from the University of Alabama. So Com and Heather thought it might be a good idea for me to share my experience kind of straddling that line from student to professional, especially since that is a really strange transition in 2020 for sure. But if any of you are kind of in the same boat as me and you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me on there, and I'd be really happy to grow my social network like Com was talking about. So this experience that I'm going to talk to you about, it's purely anecdotal, but I think that the cool thing about public health and health education is that even though we all kind of have these different career paths and there's so many options, we can kind of find a lot of common ground with each other in our experiences with higher ed and then finding a job afterwards. So before COVID, I was a planner. I liked my timelines. I had everything kind of planned out in my head. I was going to get my PhD and then hopefully get a tenure track faculty position. And if you're not sure, if you're not kind of looking into going into academia, a tenure track position means that there is, it's basically kind of job security. So it's a pathway to promotion. So you would start as an assistant professor and then be promoted to an associate and full professor. So it's kind of like, it was my ideal goal for after my PhD, because I want to teach college health education for my career. That's my passion. But, a few months ago, the best laid plans of mice and men, it didn't really work out that way. So my plan now is to kind of just embrace all of the skills that I have. So the cool thing about being a health education specialist is that we can do our work in a lot of different settings. So I had to kind of remind myself that I don't have to teach just in a classroom. I can kind of look for other opportunities in community settings. So what else can I do if that plan A doesn't work? Because a lot of universities' hiring plans have changed a lot, just like a lot of other parts of our life right now. So I was kind of realizing that getting that tenure track position might not be realistic for this coming fall. So it's hard not to get down on yourself, like Heather and Com were kind of alluding to, but I had to remember I have these other options that maybe weren't plan A, but they're still really good for me to pursue that passion of health education. So I'm trying to keep an open mind, and that means looking at non-tenure track positions, of course, and also adjunct teaching. So I'm looking into teaching adjunct at universities, which basically means it's not technically full-time, but it's more like a limited per course position. So a university might say, okay, you're an adjunct instructor for us. Here's one course. And then maybe another one opens up. So you have 2, 3, 4. So I'm still teaching. It's just not that full-time position. So all of those different approaches to my plan for the fall, again, weren't my plan A, but I had to remember that I do have these skills to kind of do this work in different ways. But bottom line is you just kind of have to keep going, keep moving along. Like my Finding Nemo reference, just keep swimming, just keep an open mind and look for what other doors might open. Because I think if we see something else that opens up that maybe wasn't your first plan, it could lead to something really valuable down the road. So I like these kinds of like action steps. So what can I do right now? What can I take control of? So I'm checking job sites regularly, like higher ed jobs, the Chronicle, Indeed, but Sophie's Career Hub has health education focused jobs listed on their site. That makes it really simple for all of us to kind of find what we're looking for. So I would definitely encourage you to look at that Career Hub too. And then I'm also trying to build up my CV. So I'm trying to finish manuscripts that I have kind of put off during dissertation. And I'm trying to volunteer more since I can do so virtually now. I'm taking advantage of that. And Sophie has been the best way for me to get my feet wet with volunteering over the past few years. That's how I started getting involved with Sophie. You can volunteer on committees just by kind of joining phone calls. It's not a big commitment a lot of the time, but it gets you into that experience that can make connections with other colleagues in the field that you might not have known otherwise. And it can also build new skills for you in that professional development aspect. So I'm trying to kind of find more and more volunteer opportunities. When it comes to social media, I'm kind of a bad millennial because I don't have Facebook, I don't have Twitter. So I'm taking comms advice and I'm building up my LinkedIn, trying to network with people in the field that way so that I can broaden my horizon past just where I went to school and who I meet through different volunteering opportunities. But I think that especially in the time of COVID, we need to have those virtual skills. And that's something else that I'm going to try to address on any new applications that come up. So if I apply for a new position that I find on the Career Hub, I can make sure that these virtual skills that I'm building are in my cover letter, and I can address how I will do this work when all of what we're doing is virtual. So if I had to give advice, and I know it's kind of silly to give advice when I'm going through it too, but if I had to give myself 3 months ago advice, I would say you can use this time to grow in a lot of different aspects of your life. So not just professionally, but if you're just at home all the time, you can focus on your emotional wellness, your spiritual wellness, anything else that's going to allow you to be stronger so that you can handle your professional and intellectual wellness even better. So that means maybe we find a new hobby and then we can connect with other people that way too. I'm going to try to keep in touch with colleagues and connect with new ones, like we've been talking about on LinkedIn, volunteer opportunities. So I would say that would be kind of a wise word of advice, just because it would be easy in this unusual time to just kind of close down and keep to yourself, since we're not face to face as much anymore. But I think that the biggest piece of advice would just be to stay hopeful. Like we were saying, this isn't an uncertain time. So if you're feeling that way and you're hearing me and thinking it's easier said than done, that's valid. But I know that no one knows what the next few months will be like. So you just have to stay optimistic and think that if you make these connections and have more and more people kind of in your corner, then you'll be better off moving forward. And you might have doors open that you weren't expecting. So that's the advice I would have given myself. But this quote kind of goes along with that. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. So I will turn it back over to Heather, I think.
I think I was muted. Hello. We're back. So, couple of things. We are going to connect. We actually had someone follow up with the previous conversation around their elevator spiel. And so we're going to touch base on that with Com in just a second. And while we're doing that, I'd love for you to take this question that we've pushed onto the screen and give us some feedback. So we're really looking to design and curate continued conversations just like this one. And so we want to know from your perspective, whether you're a student, whether you're a practitioner, wherever you sort of fall in your career, either development or developing area, what types of live webcasts or conversations would you like to see? What types of conversations or content is really important to you right now? What topics would you like to be discussed? Those are the kinds of things we'd really like to hear from you, so that as we continue to brainstorm what ways this would be useful, we're relying on your feedback. So before we dive into that, I'm going to leave this question up, but I'm also going to post Ankita's elevator speech or elevator conversation. And Com, once you've had a chance to read that, maybe we can discuss it a little bit and just kind of present some ways that that's helpful, suggestions. What do you think?
Thanks, Ankita, for sharing. I'm delighted that somebody took us up on this because it's very hard to do this. I would say that it's great that you started off with, some of your background. If your university or training program gives you a little bit of marquee value, you could also highlight that, whether it's a university or college, even if it's been a few years that you're out. I also really like that you are focusing on what you want to do in the future. So monitoring and evaluation, if I remember those acronyms correctly, and working in developing countries, focusing on university healthcare. So my advice is to think about, do people know what monitoring and evaluation is? You might just have to follow up with that a little bit. And then the second thing is, let us know where you want to work. Is it Asia, Southeast Asia? Is it Africa? When you're talking about developing countries, just to give people a little bit more specifics. So I think that was a great, quick discussion and sharing of that. Thank you for putting yourself out there in a very short amount of time. And I also want to encourage you to also, all of you out there, if you have other questions or if you want to share or type what topics, as Heather just said, that you would like us to have for students, we are here for you. It might not be in this venue, but it could also be resources that we could share with you. So let us know. Type it in there or tell us.
Yes, absolutely. So while we're still waiting for a couple of those comments to come in, and we won't take too much time. So if we don't get too much feedback now, that's okay. And if you happen to catch this at a later date, it will be on our YouTube channel, available for you to stream at your leisure. Still, feel free to leave us comments. We would love to respond to that and take that into consideration for future content and future discussions we plan. One thing I really wanted to circle back on, though, was, Rebecca, when you were talking before, I think the power of flexibility is so key right now. I think having that grace and that sentiment for ourselves is really important, but also in just looking at what options are available and kind of being open to new and exciting ideas, whether that's maybe a job or a particular opportunity you didn't quite see yourself in before, or if it's just kind of discussing new opportunities and ideas. I think being an active listener and kind of keeping that in mind is really critical right now, because you never know what could come out of, I guess, a place or a job you never saw yourself in. Do you have anything else you think would be helpful for folks watching to add to that?
I think, well, I'm glad that you think that I am flexible at this point, because it has definitely been months long progressing to that point, because, when this all happened and no one knew what was going on and I lost momentum from the interviews I was having, it's hard not to feel like it's on you. But I think we can all agree that this is unlike anything we have experienced. And even my advisors who have been in the field for decades are kind of telling me we really just aren't sure what the fall is going to look like. So it's, yeah, having that little bit of grace and allowing yourself to not be where you expected. It's hard, but I think it's a skill in a way that we can all kind of learn from and take with us when we do get jobs later on. And I think that Com's message about having an attitude of gratitude has been really helpful, because now that I have some things popping up maybe for the fall, they weren't what I was expecting, but I'm so happy to have them because of this uncertainty. It has kind of given me a lot more gratitude. And just having these networks that we're building with Sophie and talking to more students, making sure that people know that you're not alone in the weirdness of 2020. It's the new normal in a way. Yeah, so flexibility has been really the key, I think.
Yes, I would agree. And yeah, what it looks like cultivating that new normal is certainly different from everyone's perspective. It's unique. So we haven't had any more comments come in. I'm going to leave this up as our last slide so that if people join in later, they can certainly answer the question and we can engage with them one-on-one. One last thing, as you might have seen throughout the conversation today, we've posted a few banners and we are offering a promotional code for you to be able to join or rejoin Sophie as a student or even a transitional member if you want. You can use the code new student and you'll be able to save 15%. You can join by going to the Sophie website. That's www.sophie.org. And if you have any questions, like I said, you can always reach out to membership@sophie.org. That code will be available through the end of July. So if you want to take advantage of that, it is for a limited time only. But if you happen to watch this in the next few weeks, by all means, please take advantage. And before we head off, Com, I wanted to leave the last words with you. Are there anything that you want to leave our audience with today, or maybe if they're checking this out at a later time, anything you think would be helpful?
I just want to thank Heather for putting on the panel and all of you for listening in, at least live. Hopefully we'll have some of your friends and colleagues watch this. I think you're also doing another great tip that I would say is constantly just make sure that you're building your repertoire and resume. Sometimes I think advice like this is easy to have, but then you need to take the next step and do one of the things that we talked about today, whether it's looking for a Sophie member that you can interview in an area that they work in or in a state that you want to work in. Maybe doing what Rebecca did and putting herself out there and creating a LinkedIn profile so that you might be getting job announcement or somebody that might be looking at your stuff. So commit yourself into doing one action that will get you closer to getting the job you want or the practicum you want. That would be my advice. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope this was fun for you. It was great fun for me learning this new streaming technology and doing it with my co-panelists. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you on the next chat.